Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends, and welcome to Humpday, middle of the week, downhill slide to Firearms Friday. We could see it from here. Maybe this week we will talk with Dr. John Lott, president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. We're working on that interview right now, and fingers crossed that that's where we end up getting here on Friday. Otherwise, it'll just be me and you talking about all kinds of goodness related to firearms, etc. Tomorrow on the program, David Uragi is going to be joining us. He's going to be talking with us a bit about some stuff that's going on down in the Kenai Peninsula Borough that has to do with land use, self-determination, flooding, borough responses, and more. So that's coming up tomorrow morning on the program at 7 a.m. on tomorrow's show. Today, we were scheduled to meet with Congressman Nick Begich, but I got a request yesterday to move that because he said they'll have a better idea of where they're at on the big beautiful bill. I guess we'll see. Anyway, they begged off till hopefully next week. They said they'd have a better idea what's going on, and Congressman Begich asked me if he could change it. So we're doing that. We're moving it from today to probably sometime next week, and that means that today it's just you and me because I didn't have time to get any other guests on board. Here I thought I was kind of squared away with at least one guest a day for the rest of the week, and so that kind of came out of left field for me. So today it's you and me. And it's the headlines, and it's some interesting stories from around the state, including some analysis of the post-session analysis, I'd call it, including an opinion piece from freshman legislator Jubilee Underwood, who I think cites my feelings in a big way about the problem with the differences in how parties deal with themselves, I guess I should say, how parties treat themselves and how they interact, and the overall response when one of them disagrees with something else. So it's some interesting thoughts here. We're going to get into that this morning as well. What else I got? We've got the president's move now to expand oil drilling in NPRA, and of course, highly predictable reaction by the environmental groups from around the country on the president wanting to actually allow us to develop oil and energy resources in the state, or in the country, I guess I should say. And so and some of it's pretty telling. Some of the some of the reaction to this is pretty telling as far as priorities go when they start talking about some of the reactions. So we'll discuss that as well. In Anchorage, they have got some issues, man. They've got some issues there with the homeless encampments and everything else. We'll read through that, as well as problems on the assembly where now they have taken the whole conflict of interest thing to a whole new level. Historically, legislators are the only ones in the state that seem to exempt themselves from most of these laws, but it looks like the Anchorage Assembly is working. I mean, talk about no more kings, is working towards making themselves, a little bit more interconnected. Oh, the wicked webs we weave. So we'll talk about that as well. We are going to dive down into a little bit of the details on the PFD automatic voter registration, which is one of the big things that got plucked up and pulled out by this audit report from the OMB that we've been waiting for 5 years, that we just got a copy of. And that's just some of the stories that are out there right now. Oh, and I guess we could talk a little bit more about what local communities are going to do in light of the fact that the state is out of money. I mean, it's just, that's the problem. The state is out of money. What are you going to do? So we will cover all these things and more today. But the big thing that I would like to invite you to participate in would be for anybody to call in this morning. I've got the phone lines are open, and they are now ready to take your call so that you can help drive the bus today, because I'm not married to any of these stories. I mean, if somebody wants to call in and help change the conversation or disagree or go in a different direction, I'd love to hear it this morning. So let's keep getting it here, and we will we'll continue our discussions amongst ourselves, which is what I love to do when we take phone calls. So again, phone lines are open. Number to call, 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864 if you want to call in and chat with us here this morning. That's where we would love to we'd love to take your call and see what you have to say with us today. Okay, so some interesting things again, and there's seems to be quite a bit of Anchorage centric stuff this morning. So we'll just blitz through it here and get some of this stuff squared away. Now, again, I know that people are like, I don't care what happens in Anchorage. I just, we don't care how they do. We don't give a damn how they do it outside or in Anchorage, But the problem is, of course, as goes Anchorage, so goes the rest of the state, my friends. It seems like there's definitely a big game of monkey see, monkey do that goes on with a lot of this stuff. And so we should be paying close attention to what's happening in every part of our state, but especially in the largest metropolitan area in the state. Because I guarantee you that there's somebody sitting in some community somewhere outside of Anchorage that's looking on at what's going on in Anchorage and going, oh man, we could do that too. Even in some of the reddest districts in the state. I mean, you look at here's a conundrum. So Matsu is, probably the overall the most conservative district because it's, it's fairly red, right, across the board. And the city of Wasilla and the Wasilla Borough Assembly. And, now you get Palmer, which has got some left-leaning elements in it, but overall probably pretty good. You get down into the Kenai and that the whole borough is, kind of red. Homer is obviously very blue to purplish. The Kenai Borough City Council is blue to purplish. You can see what I'm saying here is that we can see these things taking effect. So it's not outside the realm of possibility. And Fairbanks, of course, the Fairbanks City or Borough Assembly, we watched what happened. I watched what happened as I joined that assembly and watched it go from a more balanced kind of back and forth, red and blue, kind of in that purple area in the middle. While I was on the assembly, I watched it go from that to pretty much full on blue, with only two of us out of the whole group, two assembly members out of the whole group, even being on the conservative. There was really no middle ground when I left. It was Lance Roberts and I, and then all the other people. It was so, again, as goes Anchorage, so can go the rest of the state. And so we need to learn. Well, first and foremost, we need to learn the lessons of history, right? Those that fail to learn the lessons of history are doomed to repeat it. And that is what we're seeing right now in Anchorage, I think, is a complete and, not complete, but I think is the showing the failure of leadership and vision. The whole nanny state thing. We've talked about the ID laws that they've had that they wanted to put in there, and other kind of nanny stating things that they've wanted. Some of the different battles that they're fighting in and amongst themselves right now. And of course, the issue in Anchorage, one of the biggest issues in the Anchorage area lately, has been with how they deal with the homelessness and the crime. And they didn't like how Mayor Bronson, I apologize, Mayor Bronson dealt with the situation. Of course, he also had to deal with COVID and all the lockdowns and everything else, and turning the Sullivan Center into a giant homeless shelter. And, millions of dollars later, here we are. But they haven't done necessarily a great job either with what's going on in the homeless areas. Although they have started to get a little more strident due to pushback from the community. Now, having spent 5 years in working in Midtown in Anchorage, and seeing the changes over the course of those 5 years, I can tell you that there are a lot of business owners that are very concerned about that homeless issue, especially in the Midtown area with some of the green spaces and things like that, because it affects their employees, it affects their businesses. And it seemed like, in a lot of ways, that the city was turning kind of a blind eye to it. Bronson administration tried to grow some teeth, had to get, of course, they were fought back and slammed down in a lot of ways by the assembly. Now it's all on the assemblies and the mayor's shoulders now with Suzanne LaFrance. And they've got some problems. Let's just put it that way. And I guess you shouldn't be surprised at some of the problems that they're having. Despite the city's plans and warnings about the disassembly of one of the largest homeless encampments in Davis Park, it didn't go very smoothly. Let's just say that it didn't go very smoothly. And we'll tell you about that here in just a moment as we continue on. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll continue here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. And with your phone calls and more. So 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. If you'd like to give us a call this morning, we'd love to hear what you have to say. Any topic is fair game today. We'll be back right after this.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Okay. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Fair warning, if I duck out during one of the commercial breaks this morning, it's because my stomach is really upset. I don't know what it was that I ate last night that upset it, but just FYI, if you get the see how that works. It's like, I don't know. It's just one of those days, man. I mean, good thing that happened during the commercial break is all I could say. It was just one of those things where I'm talking and all of a sudden, bam, the whole internet world stopped. I lost connection to everything all at once. So good for me. Good for me. Anyway, we're back. We're back, baby. All right. Go back over here. All right. Sorry, I was frozen for 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah. For years, the Mountain View community struggled. Then little by little, it started crawling back. New affordable housing, some businesses, but then the Anchorage Politburo abandoned it to the junkies. Yeah, that's exactly it. That is exactly it. LaFrance generated this problem. Changed my mind. Chris just says the camp is down the street from my house. Tons of fire set. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that here this morning. Let me go back through the comments here. Of course, Harold is banging the drum about it's all Trump's fault. Every bit of it is Trump's fault. Even stuff that was from well before when he got here. That's all Trump's fault. We all know that. Yeah, I'm just going through here. I was all frozen. Yep. All right. A conveniently placed internet error. Now you got my conspiracy brain thinking about the only disconnection that occurred. The only disconnection that occurred here was your sphincter. Yes, that's how I feel this morning. Did you hear that Bernadette is going to be opposing trawling? It's a good start. Good start. Could not be appointing trawl-based board member. Would not be appointing trawl-based board. Yes, I agree, Cindy. Whew, man, words are hard this morning. Words are hard. All right. Well, let's get things cracking, shall we? The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do this thing. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. Welcome back to the program. I don't know what happened, but the whole world exploded during the commercial break. I'm in the middle of talking and everything just crashes. Lost the whole internet and everything else. So if everything goes silent, it's not me. Okay. I just want you to know ahead of time on the radio. If it's not me, man. All right. So let's get into this. We're going to be talking in the first part of the show this morning a little bit about what's going on in Anchorage and all the different things that are happening there. Why? Because we need to be paying close attention to it. That's just kind of the way it is. So it all started out with the fact that the city has been planning to clear up and clean out these massive homeless encampments that are springing up around Anchorage. And they started clearing it out yesterday. Now, for weeks, they've been cautioning, they've been warning, they've been sending people out, they've been telling people, they've been broadcasting it. They're doing everything that they can. And so yesterday morning, the neighborhood was filled with arrays of all kinds of, different equipment, from small front end loaders to Parks and Recs people were there. The shelters had vehicles to bring people to shelters. They had animal control units there, garbage trucks, police cruisers. I mean, it was a circus, right? And they started cleaning people out of the homeless camps. And this Davis Park in Anchorage has been like home base for years for the homeless, the ever increasing homeless population in the Anchorage area. And several weeks ago, the mayor, Suzanne LaFrance, had set a deadline of yesterday for people to leave, and attempted to do, I guess, everything she could to try and get it squared away. So they set up barricades, they did all this stuff, they put it all together, and then the world exploded. Fires started breaking out all around the encampment. And it wasn't just, like a bonfire or a local, or local debris or something like that. There were big fires, multiple fires. The scene began about 90 minutes after they got started. And the first one was reported about 11:30 a.m. in the snow dump area. And that was mostly just kind of debris and other things. And it was extinguished pretty quickly, but not before sending up a huge plume of black smoke. And then 3 fires were started in structures right near each other, near the Davis Park's ball fields. Now, they're not saying what the structures were, but I don't know if they were homeless structures that had been put up or if they were ball field structures or anything. It doesn't say exactly what the structures were, but they started popping up, and now you've caught the woods on fire. So now you've caught the trees and the woods on fire, and you can see it. And then a 5th call was reported just before 1 p.m., and the Division of Forestry was called in, and they said they were supporting the fire department on Tuesday, and they came in and put it all down. So all the fires started within the encampment. There was a lot of debris scattered on the ground, and there's a lot of things. One of the pictures shows a bunch of pallets that had been apparently part of a structure that was burned. So I think the structures that they're referring to, because they're kind of back off in the woods, were mostly, home-built shacks or whatever. But the whole point here is that who couldn't see this coming? Who couldn't see this coming, that if you allowed them to set up quasi-permanent, homes and structures, the shack is it's like the bonus army shacks, right? Or whatever. If you let them set up and get settled in that way, of course they're going to be disgruntled and outraged and maybe do something you don't want them to do when you force them to leave. Right? They feel like they've lost everything anyway, and they're getting moved out, and you had inaction for so long that of course they're going to lash out and lash back. And this is just the first, I think, of many problems that we're going to see in this regard. Now, I've been quick to say, anytime we start talking about homelessness, that I don't have an answer for how to fix this whole situation. I don't know what the overall answer is, other than you've got to change. I think a big part of the homeless problem is a mental health crisis. I think obviously there's a component of probably drug and alcohol. Substance abuse is probably a big contributing factor. There are obviously financial means and emotional things and stuff like that. But I don't have a true and communities have tried all different kinds of things, and there's only a handful of communities where they've really been able to make a dent in some of their homeless issues. Some of it's exacerbated by the way that the federal government requires places to get funding to help combat it. In some cases, in fact, you can watch the documentary on Reason. Reason magazine has got a documentary where they compare and contrast the homeless response in three major areas, 2 cities in Texas and then Los Angeles. And you could see that there's a problem. It's the Uncle Sugar thing again, that when he gives you money, there are certain things that you want to do. And then when the money's there, you don't want to give up the money. And you kind of create this dependency cycle between, propagating up an industry and taking care of the problem and eliminating the problem kind of thing. But there are some things that we can take from that. But Alaska, we've seen this explosion of homelessness over the last 15 years. And of course, a lot of it is focused down in Anchorage because, one, it's the largest city in the state. It's climatically, it's one of the milder places that people can get to on the road system. They do have some support kind of, stuff. And it's a flight hub for anybody coming in from rural areas and things like that. So it's kind of it's the meeting place of everywhere in the state, right? So this is not necessarily surprising that this is what's going on in there. But we've got to get they've got to get a grip on this. I remember talking with several business owners while I was in Anchorage working there, and right there in the heart of Midtown. Our place in Midtown there butted right back up next to a green space, and there was a big homeless encampment just on the other side of a short 4-foot fence. And we had people coming through all the time, dealing with issues, people coming into we had some crazy interactions at the radio station there with folks just wandering in. And so, yeah, this is a whole deal. So they need to be dealing with this right now. And this is just the first abatement. Now, this is the largest camp, from my understanding. The Davis Park is probably the largest camp, but there are others. And we've been seeing across the last, across this last winter, where people were continuously taking videos of fires and other things that were breaking out in these camps. So I don't know what the answer is. I guess the long and the short of what I'm saying here is that this is just more of a story to tell you kind of what's going on, that it's not surprising that people who have been left in a place long enough to form a kind of a bond, to build shelters and do all this kind of stuff, would feel irate and basically want to burn the world down when they get evicted. Maybe we should be dealing with this in a more rapid fashion, a little bit faster, so that they don't get quite so, locked into place, and it's easier for them to be able to move from place to place. And maybe we should find a better way for them. So, they just don't have to be outside. I don't know how to fix this. This is one of the most frustrating things to talk about for me, because I can see all the angles, right? I feel bad for the people who are suffering, whether it's just down on their luck, or whether it's a mental health crisis, or some kind of, substance abuse crisis, or whatever it is. And basically their whole lives have come apart. I could see their point of view, but I could definitely see the point of view of business owners and people who live there and everything else. And this frustration of how do we fix it? I don't know. If I did, I'd have a Nobel Peace Prize or something, right? But this whole thing has been just very interesting to watch. And like I said, this is just the biggest camp, and there are more that are probably going to have to be cleaned out. And we'll see. We'll see where it goes from there. We'll see what happens here as they go through. But I'm glad that I'm glad that we're not seeing this in more communities, I guess, in a larger amount in more communities. So that's the first of my stories for today. But yeah, no big surprise. I think people who live in these areas are very worried. Chris in the chat room, one of the listeners in the chat room, said he lives right down the street. And he said, this is not the first time that there were fire issues with that camp. And he said there were fires everywhere yesterday. Tons of fire set. They had 5 that were big, but there were a bunch of smaller ones as well, which is really scary because, again, it's a park, but it's surrounded by residential areas and businesses. So you're a little worried about that kind of stuff, And again, the problem, and I agree with what Brian just said, it's like a game of whack-a-mole. You get them to one spot, and you break up a camp in one spot, and it just pops up somewhere else. We've got to find a way to break the cycle. And I just don't know. I just don't know why it's how to fix it. But maybe you do. Maybe you've got a solution. Maybe you used to live in a community that dealt with these things and has a handle on it. Or maybe you've got some unique perspective that you'd like to share. I'd love to hear what you have to say on this. 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. We are up against the break here in just a moment, so we're going to be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend.
Michael Duke Show.
Okay. Hold that thought. Be right back. All I can say is nobody needs that kind of negativity in their life. Eliminate the positive. Or what is it? Eliminate the negative. What is it? Anyway. All right. Let's see. I'm looking back here. Brian just said, my Pew Pew Jew books arrived. Washing machine parts? Nope. I mean, weren't the first ones defective? Like they were busted? And you're still waiting for them? Where are they coming from? One-legged donkey from Ecuador or something? Wow. Barbara says being homeless can create a mental health crisis. Well, I agree with that. I mean, I'm not saying I would not disagree with that. But I also think that a lot of the people who are out there on the street are people who have needed probably full-time health care, full-time mental health care already, right? And so we've exacerbated the problem. We talked about this by eliminating a lot of the institutions who had some horrendous track records with certain things. I'm not saying that they were perfect by any means, but having a place where people could be treated and have a place to live, and the asylums and not the institutional homes. We needed to do a better job. Let's see what else is going on. Follow the money, and you can find who the mental health crisis is helping, says Ron. Well, who do you think it is, Ron? Who do you think it is? Who do you think it's helping? Okay. All right. Mental health is such a broad and overused term so as to become almost meaningless. The increasing isolation and disassociation from society fueled by the internet and COVID have really added fuel to the problem. I would agree with that too, Brian. Good stuff. All right, here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. So welcome back to the program. Thanks for coming in. So obviously there's some issues going on with Anchorage. We wanted to continue this. This is a story that I've been wanting to get to because, and I've held on to it for a while. This story's been around for about 10 days, 12 days, but I've been wanting to get to it when we had time because, again, I think it shows, the arrogance of some elected officials who basically feel like they are the ones that are qualified or have the unique viewpoint to basically tell all of us how we should live our lives, essentially, to control or to, spin the outcome, so that they can basically put guardrails on us and, keep us safe from ourselves or whatever. And this is not unique to Anchorage. This is politicians in general. And one of my biggest talking points over the last few years has been the fact that the Alaska legislature has got a bit of a big head on this in a big way. And what I mean by that is they created all these different laws for elected officials around the state. And I'm talking about things like conflict of interest laws, open meeting act laws. They created the binding caucus for themselves and all this kind of stuff. But they create all these laws and then they exempt themselves from those same said laws. Now, the reasoning that they give for many of these laws is, arguably, I think there's some good reasoning in that, in the conflict of interest and in the Open Meetings Act law, so that they can't be, things can't be done in the back room, Tammany Hall style, deals made over a table in the back room in smoke-filled rooms. But yet the legislature has exempted themselves from doing all that because reasons, right? Because it makes it harder because it's easier for them not to have to deal with it, which is an interesting comment from another story that I'm going to get to in a little bit here, where Jeremy Bynum reflects on his time in his first year as a legislator. And one of his comments really caught my attention. But anyway, I don't want to get too sidetracked here. But the legislature, obviously, they've exempted themselves from the rules. Well, the Anchorage Assembly seems like they want to be taking on they want to start dealing with some of the same kind of stuff. In May, the Anchorage Assembly quietly approved an ordinance allowing its members to work simultaneously as both assembly members and as partisan staffers for the Alaska State Legislature. The change, which had little to no public discussion, quickly benefited one of their own, Assemblywoman Anna Brawley, who is now employed by Representative Andrew Gray. Now, this is part of that consolidation of kind of powers and the networking and the spider web of how they want to have this connectivity between all these different branches of government because, well, honestly, it makes it easier to manipulate and control and direct policy and other things when it's all connected. The policy shift was accomplished through AO 67 or 2025-67, which passed unanimously in May after another ordinance that they'd tried to pass in February ran into legal complications. And the ordinances addressed whether municipal employees, including elected officials, can hold political positions concurrently. They revised the measure to appear on the Assembly's consent agenda, which is typically reserved for routine or non-controversial items. The consent agenda basically says, here's the things. Are there any objections? Right? I mean, that's kind of what it is. The consent agenda typically reserved for routine or non-controversial items, meaning it passes with minimal discussion or scrutiny. And so the move has raised eyebrows in political circles, especially since Brawley, who voted in May, accepted the job within just a few days of that being passed into law with Rep Gray, which again leads to a question of conflict of interest. And should we have people working at multiple levels of government? Now, she's an elected official at the local level, but now she's in the offices of one of the state reps, and there's a policy issue. And I mean, I don't know. It just seems like it just seems like that is problematic, to say the least. Now, some have said, well, there's others that do that. Dave Donnelly, who works as a deputy commissioner, also serves on the Anchorage School Board. But he's only in one lawmaking body. Brawley has got a foot in both the assembly and the legislature, two halves of the same whole. And it makes you wonder why there was a big push to change the law in the assembly when they did it. Like, was there somebody, was this in the wind? And it's a little troubling. it's a little troubling that this is going on. Not to mention the fact that those that elected Anna Brawley to the assembly, how is she going to serve her duty as an assembly member when she's down in Juneau for 4 or 5 months? How is she going to do her, how's she going to do that? I don't know. Maybe things have changed since COVID. But when and of course, again, back in my day when I was on the assembly, but back in my day when I was on the assembly, there was no remote participation. You probably could have done a conference call or something, but I don't recall really any time there was a remote participation. Maybe one time somebody called in but again, not a normal thing, not an every week thing. So I don't know what's going to happen here, but it does raise the hairs on the back of my neck when I see government becoming more and more interwoven. I mean, we were already seeing the same players, right? It was like a game of musical chairs. Oh, you go from being a city councilman to an assemblyman. Oh, you go from being a legislator back down to being a mayor or to a governor or to an assembly. I mean, it's just this musical game of the same players changing, and they're already, trying to connect all the pieces. It just is that Anna Brawley is going to be double dipping as an assembly member. I'm quoting the must-read story here because I couldn't believe. I think my stipend for when I worked on the Fairbanks Borough Assembly, I think my stipend was $550 or $600 a month. And trust me, I put in. I mean, that was probably, the equivalent of $3 an hour or something by the time we got done with all the hours that we spent every week and every month going through all this stuff. But according to Must Read, who's reporting on when Brawley first went to work for Andrew Gray, she makes $50,000 on the Anchorage taxpayer dime, and then the average legislative staffer salary is another $82,000. So she's double dipping on monies from both sets of government, and she's helped shape Anchorage's municipal budget, votes on city laws, oversees policies related to housing, public safety, and economic development. The question is asked, in her new role as a staffer for Representative Gray, will she advise on statewide policy? And of course, that would include legislation that could directly impact Anchorage. Is that a conflict of interest? Of course, we know that the legislature will say, no, absolutely. I don't think you have a conflict. Go ahead and vote. I don't think you have a conflict because that's how their conflict of interest rules work. So anyway, that's the Anchorage-centric stuff. Just in case, you were wondering about all the stuff that's going on in Anchorage. That's the beginning of some real problems out there. Again, all those all the different stuff going on. And it just reminds me again of why I'm happy that I don't live in Anchorage. Now, before you pound your own chest and tell you why that's great and you're happy, but there's dark stuff everywhere, my friends. There's dark stuff everywhere. A Wasilla doctor last Wednesday was arrested and remains in jail on federal charges of possession of child abuse materials, child of a sexual nature. He is apparently the only full-time neurologist in the Mat-Su, Dr. Jeff Sponsler. He owns the Alaska Brain Center. And he was caught with videos of underage kids on his equipment, on his phones and other things. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Now, again, guilty or innocent until proven guilty. And we all know that, that some of this stuff can be spun out of control. But if that is the case, again, that we got some deep issues. And then yesterday, down here on the Kenai, again, before we get too morally superior, down here on the Kenai Peninsula, there was a news story about a man who was down here in the Homer area, who was on the Lower Peninsula, who was suicidal, and they finally got him talked down. And it turns out that he had been abusing his kids. We have some problems in this world. Okay, we have some problems in this world, and I think we just need to pray for each other and try and work through it. Anyway, that's it for this hour. We got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show. All right. I'm going back here to see what's going on. Frank says, we in Fairbanks don't care about the homeless people. We have a $33 million palace for homeless puppies. I can't believe that that's still going on. I can't believe that that's still happening right now. Brian says, I get daily updates from the parts place, because we were talking about his washing machine parts. I get daily updates from the parts place. 1031, pulled parts from the bin, from bin 234. At 1032, your order placed into cart. At 1035, cart exits row 35C. At 1037, cart arrives at shipping station. 1038, order placed on table. Yeah, put the damn label on it and put it in the mail. That's what Brian is wishing. Please. Anyone on the Anchorage Assembly, says Terry, does not need to be in Juneau. There are enough problems in Juneau without more liberals. I mean, well, there's enough conservatives to be a problem as well. Barbara said, I did both for a while. It's exhausting. You did both what? Worked as a staffer and worked in the assembly? How did that work? Tawny says, there are so many conflict of interest items that are never disclosed. It's a pet peeve of mine. I agree. I think it is important to disclose that kind of stuff. Yeah. Melissa says the school board stipend is $800. What the hell? $50K as an assembly member? Again, I was just quoting must read. So I didn't. If so, wow. How about some good news, says Greg. I know. Wood chipper go burp. Yeah. I mean, I didn't mean to end you guys all on a downer note on the last hour. I just wanted to get those, before we got to, chest poundy about how great our communities are. We got problems everywhere. We all better pray, is what I'm saying. We all just better make sure that we, do the right thing. Is it? Let's see. Child harm. Yeah. Millstone. I mean, I just think that they should get the pill, the lead pill. The puppy palace money is frozen. Well, I hope it doesn't go anywhere. $33 million for Yeah. Bill said, although Bill did say, Bill, you might have a point. To be fair, I love dogs much more than I love most people. Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point right there. Stray dogs used to form packs in Kodiak and attack kids and deer, etc., until the Humane Society stepped in. You're only allowed I guess you meant to say you're only allowed to miss a certain amount of days on the assembly. I know when I had a short vacation at one point, and I think I missed 2 assembly meetings, and I remember that I was like getting scolded for missing 2 assembly meetings in a row. And I'm like, suck it. I mean, what are you going to do? Fire me? Anyway, I see that Barbara is on the phones. Let's go over there and double check and make sure. Now I'm all nervous that something's not going to work right. Let's go over here real quick and check in with Barbara. And then I realize my timer's not running, which is another great thing. Barbara, can you hear me?
Morning, Michael. Hey, Dukes. This is Barbara. Can you hear me?
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I just thought I'd
well hold the line, Barbara. Don't hold on. Don't get ahead of me. Why are you so quiet? We're gonna get back to it here. We're 15 seconds out, and I got to figure out why you're so quiet on the phone. But we'll get to it. Here we go. We're 8 seconds from returning. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Here we go. No. How much time? Oh, we're at the top of the hour. We got time. Okay. I was like, is my timer not running? All right, Barbara, hold on a second here. Because I got to figure out why you are so damn quiet. You should be blasting my eardrums out, and you were super quiet. Was she quiet for everybody? Did everybody out there, did she sound super quiet? Let's see. The chat, the proposal temporarily unmute the general policies and the volume. All right, let me do this here real quick. Don't you love a low budget radio show? You gotta love me to get all squared away. I have to say here. Wow. All right. This weekend I've got to build this new computer because why? All right. We're gonna rejoin here in just a second. And we're gonna get it says that it's the one right there. Okay, we're gonna be back. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends. Good morning and welcome to the program. It is Humpday. Now, we were supposed to have Congressman Nick Begich on the program this morning, but he called me yesterday and asked to beg off till next week because they're still getting all the fights and the details going on about the big, beautiful bill, and he wanted to have a more definitive answer on things. So I think we're going to be moving that to next week. and we're going to be talking with him then. I'll let you know. Okay, I'll let you know on that. But that kind of left me in a bind because it was kind of late in the day and I didn't have time to get another guest. And so it's just been you and me this morning, and we've been covering all kinds of. I kind of ended on a downer note, and I guess apologies to listeners who continue to listen on through the back of the hour, because I ended the hour with two quick kind of icky stories from, anything that has to do with kids is tough. And I just kind of wanted to briefly go through them, and I apologize, but they're the stories that are out there. We've got some problems in the world. You know what I mean? We got some problems in the world, and we should be praying real hard for our friends and relatives. Meanwhile, anyway, we're going to open up the phone lines. We have opened up the phone lines. Phone lines have been open for the full hour, and I'm going to let you try and drive the bus. I got some news stories and some things I want to talk about, but I find it much more interesting to talk with you guys and see what's on your mind, what's on your hearts. What are you guys thinking about? Barbara is calling in from Fairbanks. Let's go over here to her and see what she has to say. And see if I've got her volume up right. I don't know. Everything's going wrong today. Good morning, Barbara. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, I can hear you just fine, but I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you, but it's you are slightly quiet. I've got you turned up about as far as I can get you turned up. So I don't know if it's me. It's probably me. I mean, that's how it normally is. So Barbara, what's on your mind today?
Well, I just thought I really hesitated to weigh in on this thing with Anna Brawley. I don't know her from Adam, so I can't comment on her personal qualifications. But what I can comment on is playing in that dual role as assembly member and staff.
Because you've done that.
I was staff to Rep Prox when I got elected to the assembly.
Okay.
And I continued in that role for another year and a half. And when I could tell you, it's exhausting.
Yeah, how did that work, Barbara? Because when I was on the assembly, there was no ability to, I take it back. I think Guy Satley, he did like a conference call. He couldn't vote, but he could participate maybe. I don't remember. But how did you deal with having to be a staff member and not be in town? Do they have new policies in place for assembly members that they can, I mean, with COVID, I guess everything's remote these days. How do they make that happen?
Well, there are different policies now. And while you can't share a meeting remotely, you can participate remotely. There were guide rails on how many you could do consecutively, but you could. So, and I have not been the only one, by the way. I was just probably the most notorious one because I was staff when I got elected,
Right.
as opposed to getting elected and becoming staff. So when I was elected, people knew I was a staffer. I didn't lie about it.
Right, exactly.
But
well,
the flip side is there are many state employees who run for a local office.
Sure.
And the question becomes, if you're alleged staff, you're still a state employee. So the question is, do you want to limit state employees serving in local government? And I guess one could make an argument about that.
Well, I would not be for limiting state employees from running for local government. But I think the point here is it's about access and influence, right? So having somebody who's in an elected,
without a doubt.
Yeah. So without having somebody who's in an elected body making making decisions for a community or for a state, and then being in the policy or in the staff of another elected body that is subordinate or superior to that other one is that's where I think it's problematic. I mean, because obviously what's going on in the borough or in the city is informing decisions that are being made in the legislative. You see what I'm saying? That to me was I think that's right, the bigger question.
And actually, from my perspective, I kind of found it limiting because when you're in that staff role, your viewpoint and whatever you do in that arena is guided by who you work for. So, you're not doing your own independent thing.
Right.
And sometimes what you would like to do at the local level may be inconsistent with the things that your boss essentially is promoting at the state level.
Right.
Now, I never found that to be a conflict. However, I could see where it could become a conflict for somebody, but that's an internal conflict that that person has to deal with. I don't think it's an external conflict necessarily.
So there are times
Um,
where there's
but
times
when
where,
you,
you could find yourself at odds with your employer, being the
yes,
people of the community, or the legislator, because those two things don't necessarily meet or mix.
right. So, I wish Miss Brawley luck. I found it to be very exhausting and emotionally draining. I hope her children are grown and her family is her family's life is pretty stable, because it can really destabilize a person's personal life when you're spending that much time in two public service arenas. I'm not against it if somebody's got the stamina, but I do find it unwise for someone's personal life. So I'm just going to leave it there. And she has to remember, when she's a staffer, she's not Anna Brawley assembly member. She is staff to Rep Gray.
All right. Well, thank you, Barbara. I appreciate you sounding off and giving us your perspective. Unique. I didn't know that you had served in both of those positions. And I find it a little problematic. But again, as you said, people knew about it. It wasn't like it happened after the fact. People knew about it. So thank you, Barbara, for calling in. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What was that, Barbara?
I think that's where it's different. I
Yeah.
think that's where it's different.
Yeah.
People knew I was a staffer when they voted for me.
Right. Exactly.
She was not a staffer when she got elected. So to me, that's the difference.
Thank you, Barbara, for calling in. We appreciate you sounding off this morning. Phone lines again are open at 319-527-3864. Let's go over here to this caller. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Mike, it's Craig in Fairbanks. How you doing?
Well, hello, Craig. How are you, my friend?
I am doing well. Hey, I just had a interesting little story on why I'm not real excited about throwing a bunch more money at education.
Okay, what? But there's many reasons. Go ahead.
I left my credit card at Home Depot a week ago, and they called me, and I said, "Oh, I'll be right down." Went down there, and they said, "Yeah, you'll find it in customer service." I go to customer service. There's a gal, nice gal. She's probably 19 or 18, 19, like right out of high school, it looked like. Anyway, I went up, and she didn't know anything about where my credit card might be. I said, "Well, they just called me and told me to come here." I waited around 20 minutes. They couldn't find it. So I said, "Would you please write a note? I have to get going." And I watched her write the note, Mike. First of all, she spelled my name Kreig, not a common spelling, not a big deal. I wasn't offended. But when she wrote credit card, she spelled credit with a K. And I just thought to myself, how do you make it through 12 years of school and you can't spell credit? And so I asked my daughter, when she goes to private or charter school, I said, how old was Sid when she could spell the word credit? She said probably right out of second grade, maybe early third.
Right. No.
You see where I'm going here?
No, it's crazy. I mean, maybe it's because of Krabby Patties. I don't know. It's a SpongeBob thing because they spelled Krabby with a K instead of a C. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, when you can't have graduates that have basic literacy, that's a problem. And you're right. They can't make change. They can't write things.
Yep. Yeah, what they should do is, if you get up to graduate and you can't read your diploma out loud, you can't read it, you should have to go back off the stage and start over. I don't know. It just, to me, it's 12 years you can't spell the word credit. I mean, there's something wrong there, Mike. It's not everybody. There's a lot of brilliant students out there, of course, but shame on the system for that moment. When I was driving home, I'm going, why am I giving up taxes, dividends, everything else to throw money at education if this is the result? And this poor gal, I don't know, obviously somebody dropped the ball along the way. parents, teachers, whatever.
Right.
But, anyway,
Well,
I
at
just
least
wanted to share that story.
at least she was able to
real hard driving home.
I guess at least she was able to phonetically spell it, Chris. I mean, Craig. I guess that was the important part.
Yeah.
She
There you go.
she could but how many times? I mean, I don't know about you, but how many times have you thrown a curveball at a cashier where it's like, it's a 12.36 and you hand them a 20 and then you go, oh, wait, I got the 36 in my pocket, and you pull out a handful of change and you count out 36 and they look at you like
deer in the headlights.
Yeah, deer in the headlights. I'm like, it's $8. Give me $8 back. It happens probably on a weekly basis for me where I have to tell the cashier what to give me back. It is kind of crazy. I mean, it happens, and it is kind of a sad thing. And I'm not a math genius. I think I got a D plus or a C minus in math in high school. I made it out of high school, but I mean, that was, math was not my favorite thing, but I can do that math in my head. What, you're a fresh high school graduate. Why can't you figure that out?
Yeah, no, it's disturbing. It's very disturbing. I hope we get it fixed, but, money isn't proven to be the answer. So,
no, I think that proves it right there. More money is not always the solution. I think we've got more fundamental problems there. All right, Craig, thank you for calling in, my friend. It's good to hear from you. Thanks for being part of it today. Thanks. Let's go over here. We got another caller on the line. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from? And turn your radio down.
This is and I called you back during.
Oh, I'm sorry, caller. Let me try this again. Make sure your radio's off, and I'm going to bring you back on. I apologize. Here we go. Who is this, and where are you calling from?
Hello.
Turn your radio down.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
All right, I can't hear you on my end. I can hear you on the radio.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Turn your radio off or down, and tell me what's on your mind.
There we go. All right. Well, first off, I wanted to apologize. I'm chiming in kind of late. I was listening to you earlier, and we were on the subject of the homeless issues up in Anchorage, and I had to step away because I'm working at the moment. But anyway, if I could just weigh in my thoughts on that earlier discussion, if that would be okay.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Go ahead. Tell me what your thoughts are.
So, okay, well, the last time I talked to you was during the election, which just a huge fan. Just want to get that out there. I try to keep my finger on community and things that are going on within the state. I've only lived here for going on 15 years, but I'm from Michigan originally, and Michigan's got a huge homeless problem as well. And all I wanted to say is that I know there are others that, people out there that are, legitimately have a problem. And, it's not for me to judge or say, but I do have a problem with a lot of the people that are homeless, and the fact that, when I was a teenager coming out of high school, I've used drugs, I've used alcohol, I had a homeless issue, but I still, I don't have a diploma, but I make a six-digit figure every year. I raised a family, 4 daughters. And it just, I've had people ask me for money up there in Anchorage, and then and I don't have cash on me. I say, hold on, let me go get some cash. I come back and they're counting out more money than I got in my pocket, and I'm thinking, what in the world? So, it is kind of a sensitive issue for me as well, like you were saying earlier. But I think a lot of it is, we've enabled people to be homeless, and like you were saying, they were, when they started evacuating them, they became agitated. They started to fight back, and that's more our fault than it is theirs. I don't know. I just want to kind of weigh in on that.
Well, I mean, being homeless yourself, I mean, maybe you have a better. I've never been homeless, so I don't have that insight. But I mean, there are people who go into homelessness and then come out of it and don't go back, right? I mean, it's like they were able to they had a tough time,
right,
and they pulled themselves out. And I would agree with you that in some cases we are enabling, because we're creating whole constituencies kind of to try and service and deal. And in some ways it allows avoidance of larger problems. I'm not saying we shouldn't help people, but I'm saying we should look at how we're helping people. Are we exacerbating the problem? Are we continuing it? Or are we giving them a hand up to get out of that situation? And I think sometimes, like you said, I feel like we're just enabling it. You obviously didn't want to stay in homelessness. And how many of the people that you dealt with while you were in that time, how much of it was a mental health issue or a substance abuse issue or something like that? How much of that was part of that problem?
And I can honestly say for me, it was the fact that I come out of high school with a chip on my shoulder. I had substance abuse. I had, and I don't care who you are or how smart you are. When you have substance abuse of any kind, there is a mental problem there, and it's you need to be retrained. You need to learn how to rethink. And I did it on my own. Praise the Lord, I did it on my own, but I didn't have really any support. But and like you said, I didn't want to remain that way. But it's just always been so an enigma to me that people would just choose to live that way when, there's so many opportunities to get out of it. And I saw the opportunities when I was doing it. And at the time I just chose to stay that way because I had a chip on my shoulder. But, and I think being in small town Michigan was easier to, start a life for myself and get out of that, that hole, that pit that I was in. Whereas in a larger city, it might be easier to stay that way.
Right.
I don't want to.
Right.
I don't want to try to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth or be too psychological about it. But being in that situation, it just, for me, it's like, there's always a way out. You don't have to be there. So, that's just, I just wanted to weigh in on that. So.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate the insight because, again, like I said, I've never been in that situation. And I would think that I would like to think of myself that if I ever was in that situation, that I'd want to get out of it as soon as possible and not wallow in it. But, it is what it is. Well, I appreciate you sounding off and giving us your thoughts on that. Thank you for your insight today. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. Appreciate you calling in. All right. We're up against the break. We're going to continue here. The phone lines are open. And so any of these topics that you want to hit on are fair game. If you want to be part of it, give us a ring. 319-527-3864, 319-527-3864. We're going to continue here. We've got more coming up. I've got some stories and other things that we can dive into. We'll be back. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return with more right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we are in the break right now. We're continuing on. I'm going through here. Kevin says, how about the pseudo lobbyist that's serving as a legislator? Which one? Right? You've got Elise Galvin, who is with the whole Great Alaska Schools thing. So she's doing nothing but advocating for the education industry. You got Chuck Kopp, who has worked as a lobbyist and as a union rep for the public safety people. You got Zach Fields, who's out there as a union officer. How many pseudo lobbyists are there out there? Absolutely. Melissa says, time to build a new computer. Yeah, she's not wrong. She is not wrong. It's probably one of the things that I need to do this week. But I said that 2 weeks ago, and kind of the weeks I'm 6 months into this deal, folks. I looked at my wife yesterday and I said, how did we get 6 months into this thing? And it just feels like, I'm just running on a straightaway, right? It's crazy. Frank says, I'm glad for spell check. Yeah, look, I know some people have a hard time, but when you look at it and you see what's coming out, when 65% of kids who come out of high school have to take remedial math to get into a basic 100 level math class, when people can't, spell or write, it's an issue, man. It's an issue. I know that there's good kids out there. I know that there's good students who've done well and articulate and everything else, but it should be the lion's share of them. It should be the majority. It should be that, what Craig is talking about. It should be the exception, not the rule. 4-day weekend starting tomorrow for government employees. Why is that? Oh, because is it solstice? Why is it a 4-day weekend? Man, maybe I should take, what? I should talk to my boss. Maybe I should take solstice off. Maybe that's what I should do. Maybe that's what I should do. Yeah. No. Kevin was talking. I know, Kevin, you're talking about cops specifically because he's literally a lobbyist, right? He has a lobbying company. He's got a PR strategy company. But I mean, all of these people, there's a ton of people in the legislature who have these vested interest in these other organizations. So yeah, I'm with you. What about the conflict of interest rules in the legislature? It's Juneteenth. Juneteenth is which is when? Tomorrow? Today? Tomorrow. Tomorrow's Juneteenth. Okay. Maybe I should take Juneteenth off. Maybe I should just take the rest of the month off. That's what I should do. Oh, man. I have seen spell check. This is Tracer. Tracer over Rumble says, I've seen spell check make mistake on how words are spelled. What? The machine is not infallible? You go to high school, then you get a piece of paper which says you're educated by the state. Once again, the state lies to you. Oh, savage. Hashtag savage. Oh, Brian. Why do you got to hate kids? Why do you hate kids, Brian? Why do you hate them? And then Chris, of course, has to be that ray of sunshine. Thanks, Chris. Chris says, we start losing daylight this weekend. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. All right. We are going to crack into this and get things ready to rock and roll. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the YouTube-y things and all the stuff. And don't forget to check out the Common Sense Corps. You can support the show. All you have to do is become a member of the Corps for as little as a cup of coffee a month. Help us out. That's right. Here we go. Bill just said, "Oh, right. I'm going to tell on Bill."
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Yes, I am. Proudly a pain in the Michael Duke Show. Good morning, my friends. I'm getting chastised in the chat. I'm getting harassed in the chat room this morning. First of all, Chris had the audacity to tell us that we're going to start losing daylight this weekend. Thanks, Chris, for bringing up that piece of reality. You and Brad Keithley should get along really well. That's just all I'm saying. But Bill just made a comment because I've been having some technical challenges on the show. And I think part of it is my computer is, I don't know, it's old. It's like 8 years old. I've updated it, but it just, and so I've been threatening to build a new computer. I've got all the pieces and parts. And I think 2 weeks ago, I said, I need to build a new computer. And of course, nothing's happened. And we were talking about, apparently tomorrow's Juneteenth and all the federal employees are off for a 4-day weekend. I want a 4-day weekend. I mean, come on. I want a 4-day weekend. But Bill said, so I made a comment, some kind of offhand comment about, well, I'll just take the whole rest of the month off. I'm the boss. I can do what I want. And he said, you could take the rest of the month off, but I'd bet $1 you'd still not get a new computer built. That's just mean, Bill. I mean, if I had a month off, I probably could get the computer built. And then he says, did you get your Starlink installed yet? I did install the Starlink, just not here. So there you go. On you. I got some better internet here. What the heck is Juneteenth, says Terry. I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people ask that question. Excuse me. Wow. Juneteenth, which is celebrated on the 19th of June every year, is a day that is it's a federal holiday that's meant to celebrate the end of slavery, because it refers to June 19th, 1865, which was the final order of the Emancipation Proclamation in Texas at the end of the Civil War. So that was, that's good. That's great. But I think a lot of us are like, we hadn't really heard about it. Apparently it was celebrated early on, but then during the Jim Crow era, it faded in the early 20th century. And they basically, they ignored it. And then it has been since the 80s and 90s, it was most widely celebrated amongst obviously African-American communities. And then it became an official federal holiday here just within the last few years. So it was, well, I guess it was first recognized in 1996, but now it has become more of a big deal. In 2024, 27 states and the District of Columbia have made Juneteenth an annualized paid holidays for state employees, and it's a bank holiday too. So it was. So that's what Juneteenth is. It's the celebration of the end of the Civil War and the end of slavery, the Emancipation Proclamation. So it's good. It's great. Maybe I should talk to the boss and we should have Juneteenth off, especially since it's right there next to the solstice, which is important to us here in the state of Alaska. We could create so if it's on the 19th and then the 20th and the 21st is solstice, maybe we just create a 3-day holiday. So it's good. All right. What else? Sorry, I got distracted. Let's see. What are some of the other stories that I wanted to talk about here? I wanted to talk a bit about the reaction from some of the freshman legislators. James Brooks over at the Alaska Beacon, or I'm sorry, not James Brooks, but Corrine Smith, had a chance to interview and talk to a bunch of first session legislators and to see what their thoughts were on how everything went and what went down and, what was the overall feel, and ask them to grade themselves. How do you feel about all this kind of stuff? And it's an interesting read. If you haven't had a chance to read it, it's over at the Alaska Beacon. It came out a couple days ago. And the title of the article is "Freshman Lawmakers Reflect on Their First Session in the Alaska State Legislature." And it goes through a handful of them. One of the more interesting comments to me, though, was from Bill Elam, who is the House District 8 Republican up in the Kenai, in the Upper Kenai. And it was really interesting. One of the things he said, and this folds back into what we were talking about earlier with conflict of interest and Open Meetings Act and a lot of other things. He said that the process was similar to his experience on the Kenai Borough Assembly, but he said negotiations across chambers and partisan lines were new. He said so much of the work is done outside of committees in meetings with your other legislators. When you get to the point where you're working with the other body, you're trying to get support from all 60. He said, so that's where it starts turning into more of a bigger spider web. Now, that to me is more telling, that there's so much work done outside of committee in meetings with other legislators. See, that doesn't happen at any other level in government in the state of Alaska. There is, if you sponsor a piece of legislation as an assembly member, you can only have one. Well, you technically, I suppose you could have two co-sponsors, because you cannot have a conversation. You're really not, to be safe, you really should only have conversations about it with one other legislator because of the Open Meetings Act. Because then everything that has to be done on this bill should be done in the public eye, in the committee meeting, on the record. But see, that's not how it works in the legislature. In the legislature, they put the bill on the record. They read it in. They get it ready, and maybe they have a committee meeting. Maybe before they have a committee meeting, they get behind closed doors, and they start horse trading, and they start chipping away, and they start making the sausage, and all of that is done outside of the public's view. Whereas if you tried to do that in a borough assembly or a city council meeting or any other elected board or anything that has to do with laws or regulations, you would be castigated, and you would probably be charged at some point and maybe relieved of duty, maybe recalled, because the Open Meetings Act says that you have to do all of that in front of the public. Now, the legislature says, well, we that just makes it too hard, and we need to be able to come to an understanding behind closed doors so that we're not, so the public is not, feeling the strictures, and so they can basically free things up, is what they're saying. So they don't have to face public scrutiny while they take positions that may or may not be antithetical to what their constituencies voted them in for. And I think that's the biggest problem that we have. That the fact that they're not allowed, are allowed to do that all the time. And in fact, it's necessary. We couldn't operate. It would be too hard if we had to have all these discussions in public. Why? First of all, you're in Juneau. Most people are probably not going to show up to Juneau to do it. Or is it that you just don't want to go on the record with whatever tit for tat or horse trading or anything else? Why are they so resistant to doing these things in the public? I've had Republican legislators who are ostensibly said that they are against the binding caucus say that they would still support the exemption to the Open Meetings Act for the legislature, because we just would never get anything done otherwise. Why? Why? Anyway, it's an interesting piece, and it led me actually over to a piece because when they got down to, they interviewed, who did they interview in this piece? Robin Burke from the North Slope, Ted Eichscheid from Anchorage, the Democrat from Anchorage, Carolyn Hall, the other Democrat from Anchorage, and then Kai Holland, the independent from Girdwood, and then again Bill Elam, and then Jeremy Bynum from Ketchikan. And they said that they reached out to Jubilee Underwood in Wasilla, and she wasn't available for an interview, but sent an op-ed that she had published in the ADN about 10 days ago. And her op-ed is quite possibly, I mean, it feels like she's dragging it out of my soul, because she's saying what I have been saying for the longest time. And, if you want to get together and you want to form, you want to be effective, she's got some advice. And we're going to read through this opinion piece here from Jubilee. And then, maybe we'll try and get her on the show next week to try and follow up on this, because I think this is a brilliant piece. And I think it outlines a lot of the problems that we've been having here in this state. And we'll go over that here in just a few minutes. So don't go anywhere. One final segment dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Don't forget, tomorrow, David Uragi is going to be joining us in hour 2 from the Kenai Peninsula. We're going to be talking about land use issues, self-determination, flooding, the borough's response, and much more. It's going to be an educational hour in hour 2 tomorrow. We'll be back. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense, Liberty-Based, Free Thinking Radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Let's see. Which famous statesman was it that said government in secrecy is tyranny? I don't know, but it seems pretty much on point. Pretty much on point. And Harold's back in the chat room, this time giving recipe advice. Chicken is best when fried in olive oil in a cast iron pot, slow cooked with rosemary and honey sesame sauce. It sounds delicious. It sounds delicious. Melissa just said, did they freeze? Did this freeze for anyone else and make it look like Dukes was laying down a rap album? Yeah. I'm Mike D and I get respect. That's what I'm all about here. That's what I'm all about. Dave's a good guy. Sorry, Dave's not here, man. Did you know that the last actual slave in the U.S. was apparently in Sitka, an Alaska native? There's a book about this. The book tells the story of Sakwa, a Haida man who embarked on a courageous quest for freedom from his Tlingit owner, and the trials ultimately ended human bondage in 1886 when it was then known as the District of Alaska. That's a kind of a cool story. I wouldn't mind reading that. That would be that I would like to do that. Our senior center is closed for Juneteenth. I think there's a lot of places. I mean, if it's a federal holiday, there's going to be a ton of places that are going to be closed. Absolutely a ton of places that are going to be closed. Okay. Lunch-a-la-tour. Lurch-a-la-tour. I don't know what Harold's trying to say there. All right. Love the MC name. Well, I can't take credit for that, Jesse. How old are you, Jesse? I'm just going to look at her photo. Okay, she's too young to know. When you say, I'm Mike D and I get respect, your cash and your jewelry is what I expect. That's the Beastie Boys, right? So I can't take credit for calling myself Mike D. It just happened to fit, all right? So That's the Beastie Boys. Boys. Oh. And then Fat Ray's going to argue with Harold. That was some very bad Yankee chicken frying advice. It's a cast iron pan in beef tallow. Well, I mean, okay. I'm all good. I mean, either way, it's fried chicken. How could it be bad? I mean, any one of those things. I mean, why? None of it can be bad. Yeah. Jesse just said, "Oh yeah, I didn't know that." Young in here, she says, "Yeah, I mean, come on, you don't know the Beastie Boys, man? That's my high school sabotage. Beastie Boys, fight for your right to party. Come on, that's some good stuff." Dave's a good guy. Chris was referring to David Uragi. Okay, yeah. No, Dave is a good guy. I just met him here recently, and we got to talking, and I'm like, man, I want to talk about this on the air. There's some crazy stuff going on there. Yeah, intergalactic. See? Fat Ray knows what's what. Fat Ray knows what's what. Yeah, I have some of the most eclectic taste in music, probably anybody you know. It's just, but definitely enjoying some throwbacks to the Wayback Machine on that one. All right, I'm all caught up on the chat room, and we're going to talk a little bit here about this Jubilee Underwood opinion piece, and then we'll call it for the day. How about that? Does that sound like a good deal? I tried a Julia Child chicken roasted in Cabernet and butter, or beef roast. Ooh, that sounds good. My wife has done that where she does the Cabernet and the beef, not the spare ribs, but the big ribs, right? The big chunk roundy ribs. And then she puts them in the pressure cooker with Cabernet and some butter and some other stuff. And she puts it in the Instant Pot and she cooks it in there. Oh, so good. So good. Man, my wife can cook. That girl can throw down in the kitchen. All right, let's get back to it here. We are just about 30 seconds out. We're ready to go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, sound off, and share in the chat room. The short ribs, I guess it was short ribs. It's anyway, delicious. Now I'm hungry. Thanks. Talking about all this food. Here we go.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Okay, welcome back to the program. Thanks for coming in. Just another beautiful day here, hump day. Sun was up over the horizon of the hills this morning as I got up and got my first drink of water, and it's gorgeous. It's going to be a beautiful day. Beautiful day. Wherever you are, I'm wishing you a beautiful day, no matter where you are today. Don't forget, if you're down on the Southern Peninsula this weekend on the 21st, we've got that my buddy Eric Watkins over there at Echo Lake Meats is throwing a customer appreciation barbecue. So he's not paying for this or anything. I love all the work that Eric does. He makes some of the best stuff in the state as far as I'm concerned. I had some spiral pinwheels the other day that I bought there that were stuffed with cheese. It was amazing. Amazing food. Anyway, customer appreciation on the 21st, Saturday the 21st, down there at Echo, or up there, depending on where you're at Echo Lake Meats there on the California Beach Road on K Beach. It is delicious stuff there, and they're going to have all kinds of, they got burgers and food and prizes and all kinds of stuff. So if you're out and about on Saturday in the Kenai Soldotna area, you may want to swing by. Just throwing that out there. Okay, because the only reason I brought that up is because everybody was talking about food during the commercial break, and then somebody said Calbee Korean ribs, and I'm like, oh, he's got some Calbee ribs there that I should get. Maybe I need to go to Kenai today. Anyway, it's this is always bad to talk about food in the morning before the show is over, because then I get hungry. Let's continue over here to this opinion piece from Jubilee Underwood, who, I mean, this is a great piece, and I had missed it until I was linked back from the story that Corrine had in the Alaska Beacon. And I'm just going to read through it with some of my commentary, because I think this is it stands alone as I think a very, very good piece for people who are seeing what's busted here. She said the conservative movement prides itself on being the standard bearer of life, liberty, and traditional values. We rally under the banner of pro-life, championing the sanctity of the unborn and preservation of moral foundations. Yet when it comes to our political battles, we often turn our fiercest weapons not on our ideological opponents, but on each other. The left may throw punches, but it's conservatives who deliver the knockout blows to ourselves. The infighting within the conservative ranks is more than just a distraction. It's a self-inflicted wound that cripples our ability to advance our principles. While the left maintains a disciplined front, coalescing around shared goals despite internal disagreements, conservatives splinter into factions, each claiming to be the true champion of the movement. From primary purges to social media slandering, we've become experts at devouring our own. And at this point in the article, as I'm starting to read it, I'm like, wow, preach it, girl, preach it. I mean, this is what we've been talking about on this program for years. That the right was really good at circling the wagons and then shooting inward, right? This is like, it's historically, this is, and again, this is part of the problem with dealing with people on the, on the more conservative side of the philosophy. Generally people are more rugged individualists. I want to be left alone. And more on the other side, the progressive side of the spectrum, they're more communal and kumbaya and everybody pulls together kind of thing. It's a different mindset. So in a way it's understandable, but we do it to such an extreme degree. It's astonishing. She goes on to say, I will admit it's quite disheartening watching the onslaught of accusations from fellow Republicans shouting out "Rhino" anytime a vote isn't taken in a lockstep binding caucus fashion, because a binding caucus isn't an ideal Republicans hold to. There's an old Ronald Reagan quote that says, quote, that person who agrees with you 80% of the time is a friend and an ally, not a 20% traitor, unquote. Do we believe that? She said, contrast this with the left's approach. Progressives, even within their own, with their own flaws, know how to close ranks. When one of their own strays, like a senator or representative voting against a party line bill, they don't unleash a public execution. Instead, they negotiate, regroup, and redirect their energy towards their common political enemy, us, the conservatives. Their ability to maintain unity, even when fractured, gives them a strategic edge we squander through our relentless infighting over ideological purity. I mean, can you feel me? Can you feel this building up? She goes on to say, if we want to win, we need to stop eating our own. That means embracing spirited debate without resorting to excommunication, recognizing that a conservative who disagrees on tactics or tone isn't a traitor but a potential ally, directing our criticism towards the left's policy that we deeply oppose, rather than fixating on our own small differences, and sometimes picking up the phone and calling to ask questions instead of reading clickbait and becoming a Facebook ninja warrior. The left doesn't beat us because they're stronger. They beat us because we're too busy beating ourselves. This is a brilliant piece by Jubilee Underwood. And I got to say, it so neatly and succinctly summates everything that I've been feeling about many members of the party for a long time, and kind of the party as a whole. as well. I mean, again, the disappointment in the party, and I always try and offer, whenever I criticize the party, I try to offer creative criticism, not just, you don't hear me say people are rhinos, right? We try to talk about the whole thing, but this is brilliant. She has really nailed it on this one. And I'm going to try and invite her to come on the program maybe next week and see if we can get some more, if we can dive deeper into this, because I think this is a fascinating insight from a lady that just literally, jumped into the legislature this year and has got, this is the first thing that she notices as she comes into it. This is really her takeaway. The conservative conundrum, she calls it. And it would be interesting to talk with her more about it. So we'll see if we can reach out to her this week and get her on for next week's program. I think it's, again, a brilliant piece. All right, my friends, we got to go. We will see you guys tomorrow with David Uragi as our guest in hour 2. And we're working on John Lott for Friday, for Firearms Friday. We'll let you know how that works out. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio. Okay, my friends. Appreciate you guys coming on board and being part of it. Fat Ray said the author copied your homework, Michael. I mean, she put it very succinctly. I mean, I've been talking about things in the same vein for many years, and maybe she just distilled down all my words. I'm not mad about it at all. I'm not mad about it at all. So I appreciate that. Melissa says the right is amazing at not wanting a binding caucus and then wanting a binding caucus. Don't you dare vote down the line, but you better vote down the line. I know, right? It's like the libertarians trying to out-libertarian each other. Guys, come on. Come on. Come on. All right, you guys. Appreciate you being here. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
Goodbye.
Let's see. Was I? Hold that.